You're listening to Out of the Box, a place for marketers to get inspired, get going, and break out of the box.
Welcome back, everyone. I'm Jess Overton, and you're listening to Out of the Box, the podcast for mobile marketers looking to grow their businesses and break out of the box. Today on the show, we have our guest, Karan Bhavnani, Associate Marketing Manager at Tripledot Studios. Karan, thanks for being on the show today.
Thanks for having me, Jess.
So we're going to have a pretty broad conversation today, I think, about growth marketing trends this year. We're already a month and a half into 2022. But before we dive in, I'd like you to present yourself. I'd like to get a little bit of your history, how you got into growth marketing, and how you got into Tripledot Studios.
Yeah, definitely. That it's really great to be here. The first thing I want to say is that I'm a really big fan of the podcast. I've listened to a lot of the shows, and I think it's always been a good listen. I've had a lot of fun. It's like my little weekend pastime. So really happy to be here, contributing to the community in my own way. So a little bit about me. I'm from Mumbai in India. I moved to the UK in 2014 to study economics and business management at King's College. I then went on to get a master's at London Business School in data analytics and management. Big hello to any King's or LBS alumni listening in. I then kind of went from student to real life adult in the middle of the pandemic. So I think I timed that transition really well. I always knew that I wanted to get into the startup space when I was sort of studying, because I love the idea of working with sort of very ambitious people in these high growth environments and trying to create something from the ground up. So I started off getting some experience. I worked in the ed tech and the health tech space here in London. And during my roles there, I did a bit of work on growth strategy. And I thought, this is a really exciting space and I could really kind of make something here. And then I heard about Tripledot through a connection from business school. Had a conversation, and I think that Tripledot really had everything that I was looking for at the time. It was a young and energetic company. The team was extremely ambitious. I think I resonated with the mentality here quite a bit, and that was hire talented people, give them the tools to succeed, and let them express themselves and do what they do best. So I thought that was something that I felt I could really use, and it would work really well for me. So I started in January of 2020 as a marketing analyst, and I'm now an associate marketing manager here. And I primarily overlook all of our UA activity on the video ad networks for all of our games.
Very cool. So for those listening who are less familiar with Tripledot perhaps and are listening later in time, Tripledot recently raised a Series B that put their valuation in the unicorn territory. So certainly you got onto the rocket ship at the right time. And I guess it'd be a good time also to maybe hear a little bit about who Tripledot is, what sorts of games you guys publish, who your main competitors are, and who your demographics, who you're aiming to target.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. I love talking about Tripledot, and I love talking about our games and the people that play them, because I think they're all fantastic. I think it's because we have this fantastic user base, and because of our games at Tripledot, like you said, is today one of the fastest growing mobile game studios in the world, and we've managed to secure this amazing valuation and this amazing funding round. But yeah, we come from humble beginnings. A few years ago, we started off and our focus was on evergreen games. So our first titles were titles like Solitaire and Blackjack and Sudoku. So these kind of timeless classics that had already been there on mobile for several years at the time. And we launched with these not because we underestimated the skills or the effort that we needed, but we wanted to show that we had the talent to kind of show ourselves in this very saturated market. And once we could do that, once we managed to execute on these classic titles and show that we could drive success with these products, we then started to kind of expand our portfolio. We started to introduce new games, and that's when we made Wodoku, which is one of our sort of most famous titles at the moment. So it's a wood block puzzle game, and it's been doing really really well. Given the success of Wodoku, we wanted to expand on this category because we saw a lot of potential in the sort of puzzle, casual puzzle space, and we came out with more titles. So now we're in the Merge Match 3 card story game. So we have a game called Merge Party. We have a game called Triple Tile. We have a game called Piper's Pet Cafe, which is actually my favorite, which is a tri-peak solitaire story style game. So definitely check that out if you guys haven't. I think what we wanted to do was we wanted to make that space of time when you're on the bus going somewhere, or where you're waiting in a queue for a doctor's appointment, or when you're just looking for something to do. We wanted to make that fun for everyone. And we wanted to do that by making sure that people feel mentally stimulated and intellectually stimulated. So that's kind of a little bit about the games that we make. And I think in terms of our demographic, we make games for everyone. We have fantastic distribution across our user base. It's definitely something we monitor, but we want to make games that anyone and everyone can enjoy. And I think that's the beauty of the puzzle space. And I think it's something we've seen recently. Again, we've recently had this game called Wordle, which is kind of broken out and kind of, everybody's into this. And it's like, maybe everyone, the market that this is targeting is not the typical gamer, but it's like my mother, my grandmother, like people I see everywhere are now playing this game. And that's what we want to be. We just want to be someone that can create entertainment. And that's why also our competitors are not necessarily just gaming companies, but anyone who's also trying to entertain and who's trying to compete for people's time is something that we are that we end up competing with. I think a really good example of this is a few months ago there was this Facebook outage day where all the Facebook products just completely shut off. So there was no Facebook or Instagram or WhatsApp. And initially, we were like, how do I get in touch with people? This is insane. Then it went to, wait, what's happening to our marketing campaigns if Facebook is not working? And we were kind of thinking of all these things. And interestingly, what happened the next day was we saw just a massive spike in engagement across our user base. That was extremely sort of came out of nowhere. And I think once we looked at it, we saw that kind of correlated completely with the hours of the Facebook outage, and that kind of showed us like, well, if people are not able to use Facebook, they're looking for something else to entertain them, and that's where we come in. So it kind of proved this point that, well, we're not really just competing with mobile game companies. We're competing with anyone and everyone that's also in this sort of entertainment space and competing for people's time.
For sure. Well, listen, I want to get into a little bit more of the marketing aspects of what you guys actually do at Tripledot, because you do have a big challenge. Not only are you vying for people's attention rather than competing against games, but you're not really drilling down to any one segment of the population. You have to talk to anybody and everybody and be able to do that on a whole host of channels. And I've always been a little bit of an operations geek. People who have listened to past episodes will know that. So I actually want to get started with how you guys structure the team, especially in a high growth environment. When you guys are at the beginning of your journey, you're adding games all the time. I'm sure you're adding channels all the time. How do you guys structure your growth team? And how does that impact the team's performance, your marketing performance? Talk to me about that.
Yeah, that's a great question, Jess. I think that's our secret sauce. Our team structure is, I think, it will always have an impact on productivity and on performance, and something that we see positively impact the day-to-day operation side of things and also the bigger picture. Something we try to do is make sure that everyone has a good understanding of all of our key traffic channels, and this is particularly on the user acquisition team where I work. We do definitely have specialists for the different networks and the different channels, but ensuring this base level of generalist skills means that we can be flexible in the moments that call for flexibility. And there's several of these moments. And I think having people that can work across channels and across networks and have this understanding of what you need to be looking for is what actually helps us be flexible and kind of put resources where they're needed the most and not have these restrictions around them. So I think that's something that's really helped us in terms of structure. Another thing is actually, having people together. So Tripledot is it's almost an office first space. We really encourage people to come into the office, whenever possible, assuming there are no sort of health concerns around it. And we've created the space in our office to just be an amazing, fun and friendly space it's tend to have a really positive impact on performance and on the people around. It means that our team can share ideas. Everybody can see who's working on what, and it kind of it encourages everyone to get together and share ideas and share resources. And it's very common to find people working on new ways of like visualizing data or new optimization strategies or anything else, and then it creates this environment where suddenly you have one or two people looking at something, trying to decide is this the best way to do it, and then suddenly there's two more people looking, and before you know it, like everybody's working on this thing and trying to find like whatever we're looking for, and sharing ideas and sharing kind of information on what they think is best. We're also hiring really, really aggressively, and we're trying to get new people onto our team. And this is something that also contributes to this, because we're not looking for people to just slot in and be operational, but we're looking for people to challenge the way we think and to bring out new ideas and find the things that we can be doing better and encourage us to always perform at a higher level. So I think that's what it is. It's the team, it's the way we operate, it's the way we encourage people, especially by giving them the environment that they need, and giving them the tools they need to succeed, and kind of allowing them to just be themselves. And it really helps because it means we work as a unit, whether it's marketing or product or monetization. We're all in the same space. We're all interested in the same things, and that really helps. It helps you build friends outside of your core team, and I think it helps you stay in touch with what everyone's doing. And I think that's one of the keys to our success.
So I think you mentioned there that you also sit with the product team, right? Is that serendipitous, or was that by design?
That was by design. So it's something we did actually think about, because we feel like there is a lot of overlap between product and marketing. Just knowing when product is doing different A/B tests means that we know what we can expect on the UA side, and then we can actually work with them to see we can jump on the opportunities they create, or we can manage any sort of risks that are created as a result of that. And I think that also, again, it kind of helps us communicate with each other. It means that everyone's on the same page and everyone is looking at the same data and aware of what's going on.
Interesting. It's always interesting to me to understand where growth teams sit in relation to those other teams, whether it be CRM or whether it be those product teams, because you really get to see where those loops get closed and what sorts of experiments are actually happening and where they happen within the game. It's always a very interesting connection and has a nice effect on how UA efforts are done. Mm-hmm. And I think that you talked about experimentation. It's an interesting segue into perhaps how you guys experiment on the UA team in terms of your marketing approach. So you guys, you can say that you develop pretty traditional games, right? Mm-hmm. If it takes solitaire, that's basically as traditional as you get. I remember playing solitaire on my father's first laptop when I was 5 years old. That was what it was. But how experimental is your marketing approach?
Yeah, we are definitely a data-driven company. At the same time, we want to test everything. We feel like if something has potential, we test it and we let the data guide us. And I think it's this mix, and it's quite a beautiful mix of instinct and data that allows us to leverage the traditional channels and also make the most of the experimental channels that we bring on. So we recently launched a TV campaign in the UK, which I guess is it's as traditional marketing as it gets, but maybe not for maybe not for puzzle games on a mobile in today's day and age. So we definitely want to try things. We definitely want to see what we can do and how it can impact us, and what results we can get from it. Something I personally have always been interested in. So I live in London, and I spend a lot of time commuting on the tube, on the bus, and there's always this moment where you're kind of sitting on the tube and you're staring into nothing, and you see an ad in front of you. And so we're always thinking about where we could position ourselves, and what is the difference between the results that these things can drive. The important thing for us is that the ways in which we acquire users are attributable and measurable. Sorry, attributable and measurable. So you want to know that we can actually find, we can measure the impact that it has on our user base. We know where it's coming from, and it's not getting mixed in with everything else because we have so many channels. And so as long as we can measure it, and as long as we know where it's coming from, it's something that we want to try and see whether it works for us. We definitely take cues from the rest of the market, but I think we're always open to testing something new. If there's anyone from the marketing software space listening in, if you think you have a marketing channel that could work for us, please get in touch. We'd love to test it and see whether it's the right fit.
So that's a good question. No, I mean, you're sort of popping out the question into the stratosphere, into the whatever sphere that we're talking into. But how do you go about finding new channels? How does your team do that? How do you discover those cutting edge channels? It is probably a little bit different for your type of app development outfit to be advertising on TV. So reinventing the old into the new is certainly one way to do it. How else do you guys think about that?
Well, to be honest, usually the channels come to us. I think there's so much competition in the market these days, and there's so many different types of tools that you can use that people are always trying to find people to test it, and we're always happy to be in that position where we're listening in. Apart from that, we try to be out there in the public. So I was recently at Pocket Gamer conference in London, and places like that they have amazing insights into new technology, into the new things that are happening in the market, and they're honestly a great place to meet people. I think the kind of ideas that you see on display at conferences, at events, even just on a podcast like this one, is something that will, it's always helpful. It's always helpful to be in touch with the industry. And you pick up on things, and you meet people, and you share ideas, and that's how we hear about things. I think deciding on what you should test first, that's the challenge. It's like, how much time can you commit to all the different types of traffic and types of channels that are available. And that's something that we try to take a structured and measurable approach to, kind of setting goals on what we expect to see, and then we can test it and see, did it meet did it meet the goals? Did it do what we expected it to do? And what was the outcome of that on our metrics?
So when you're talking about testing these new channels, are you looking at testing channels on sort of a tried and true title, or is that something that you would also be willing to do on a title that you're just about to launch?
So it's usually on the tried and trusted channels. I think it's about the data. It's about having a baseline that we can compare it to,
Right.
And that's where it usually comes in. On the newer titles, not having a very established baseline can sometimes make it sort of unsure about how effectively the channel is working. So we usually try to keep things, we try to create this hypothesis of what we expect to happen, and that's usually much easier when we're talking about something where we know how it's going to react, and we'd have something to compare it to.
That makes sense. So then talk to me about how you launch a new title. How does that work?
Like I said, we have a lot of new titles that have recently come out, and I think the launch process is all about ensuring that we're about to share a game that we are really proud to share. It goes without saying that we play our games a lot. We have to love them before expecting others to love them. But before that or alongside that, there's a lot of small but still crucial steps that we have to take in the launch process. I think a key part of that, or maybe even the most important, is monitoring and responding to customer interaction, whether that's interaction with our creatives, so on the sort of pre-install metrics, or whether that's trends around engagement on the post-install metrics. We want to know what our customers like, what they don't like, what they're enjoying, and what they're not enjoying, and we do this by looking at the data at every stage, and we just keep trying to optimize it. It's not one single point of launch or one single moment. It's a continual process where we're constantly trying to make sure that we're listening to our users, we're giving them what we want, and we're trying to make sure that our games are the ones that people are choosing to play, and that's what they enjoy doing with their time.
Very cool. I guess that probably, I mean, you say that it's sort of I guess it's not a single point in time, right? It's more of a gradual process as you go. But at the beginning, I'm sure that those feedback loops are much tighter, right? You guys are probably in sort of war mode as you start to build you building. How do you know when you take the foot off the gas to sort of slow things down when you've come out of that sort of we're here and we're new mode into a more evergreen title mode?
I think that's a really interesting question. I think it's about figuring out or having these clear expectations of what you expect to see, right? Like, we like to come in with a plan. We know what we're going to do, which channels we're going to test, what metrics we need. And then again, it's that feedback and that iteration of seeing, okay, where if users are dropping off, at what point are they dropping off? Is there something at that stage that we could be doing better? And we try to just tailor those moments to better suit the users. And once we're kind of happy with the metrics, is when we would, decide to take our foot off the gas, or go into more experimental sources of traffic and try new things. So we try to really build a foundation first. Once we have that foundation, once we have that user base, once we know that there are people that are enjoying our games day in, day out, and we're getting this positive feedback on it, that's when we kind of go towards that next stage of pushing it more, or really being like, this is now one of our key titles that we're gonna put ourselves behind and sort of let it run operationally.
Very cool. Well, it sounds like the Tripledot playbook is very, very well developed. And I want to look forward. Also, I think you've talked to us. You've given us a lot of very tangible tips without going into too much detail. But I do want to talk to you a little bit about what you see for 2022. What trends are you seeing pick up? What do you expect, or what do you predict is going to pick up in 2022 for mobile apps?
It's a crazy world out there in 2022, and there's infinite new channels and opportunities that are coming up. Again, I think I'd go back to my experiences this last weekend, or this last start of the week at the Pocket Gamer Conference. I think what I was really surprised to see was the significant presence of NFT gaming at the conference, and I'm really excited to see where this heads over the next sort of 6 to 9 months, because I mean, where it's come in the last 1 year is absolutely incredible. It's the presence that it has now, and the fact that everybody wants to know more about it, everybody wants to get involved, and everybody wants a piece of the pie is really amazing. And I think it's great effort that's been put in by these companies, and it's really great for our industry, because it means that once again, gaming has been brought to the forefront of technology. And it's the first place that people are using this technology and using these new ways of reaching users and engaging with them. So that's something I'm really excited to sort of watch over and see what happens with it. I think it's going to be a great ride, and I'm going to be watching that really closely. For me, the other ones are, I would say I'm really excited by TikTok. I think we've all seen it rise to the forefront of social media and really become this massive powerhouse in social media. I'm really excited to see if that's going to translate into the ad space, if they're going to compete with the with the big boys of advertising, and actually kind of cement that position there. So for me, that's really exciting one. I think Google recently announced that they're going to have their own version of ATT, and there's gonna be some changes being made. Again, it's something that we always knew was going to happen. We never knew when. It looks like 2022 may be the last year that we get to continue with business as usual, and then there's going to be some changes. So there's always there's so many things that change. In-game ads is something that I think is also picking up a lot. Audio ads is something I heard a lot about at Pocket Gamer, and it seems like it's really picking up a lot of steam. I wouldn't know which horse to bet on, but I'm sure that all of these is going to be extremely relevant for the next year, and I think we're going to be hearing a lot more about all of these things in the next few months.
Wow, there's definitely some very interesting stuff going in all of those four categories. I think that there's certainly a lot to watch, and maybe we'll be able to loop back to this conversation in a year and see where things have gone, because it's going to be an interesting time. That's for sure. One thing that has been happening for the last couple of years, certainly that I've been seeing up close, is a lot of automation. Mm-hmm. And as we move into a world of black boxes and we go further away from the gate, ATT has happened, and we have fewer and fewer data points that are being externalized, as we say. What do you think that means for the future of marketing managers such as yourself? Where does automation leave you?
I think it leaves me in a great position. I'm a big fan of automation. I think automation is here to support UA managers like myself, and for me, it means there's a lot more time to focus on strategic tasks and the strategic side of the role. Automation, I think what it is it's processes that need to be done repetitively, on a daily basis, or very, very frequently, and it needs to be done consistently and correctly every single time. There's human error with all of these things, and I think on one side automation removes that, and it kind of allows you this time to focus more on a higher level thing, and to pay more attention to trends, and it leaves the sort of operational side of things a little to itself, but I think they work together. I think it's a pairing of humans and automation, and I think together this is going to continue evolving into a massive powerhouse. I definitely agree that it's something that's already in our market, and it's already something that all of us need to listen to and need to be aware of and need to see to what extent we can use it. But for me, I think it's great because it's this idea of almost converting logical thinking, and some may call it gut instinct, into a mathematical formula. I think that actually gives it real substance. It's a way of putting down whatever happens in our minds, or kind of by nature, into something that we can mimic and we can actually improve on. And again, this means that we can now spend more time improving the inputs we're giving to the automation, and understanding its limitations and how we can better that, or how we can use it and how it applies to us. I think it's taking us from a point where we need to make much fewer decisions, and I think personally that it's better to make one or two amazing decisions in a day than to make 50 average or good decisions in a day.
For sure. Wow, that's a pretty good tagline for your automation company, should you build it sometime in the future. Karan, this has been a really insightful conversation. I think I've taken a lot of good practical tips, and if I want to launch a game, I know who I'm going to be coming to. And I'd like to wrap up with one final question, which hopefully can be of some use to somebody else, and that's what is one mistake that you've made personally, and what did you learn from it?
That's a great question. Well, I think, I've made a lot of mistakes in my time, but I think, I think we always take risks in this industry. Let me know if you think this is a cop out answer, but I think it's, not taking risks is always is something that a lot of people kind of go down the route of. I think I like to think of risks as opportunities, and I think there's nothing wrong with making mistakes. It's about learning from them, and you can't always get it right. You won't always get it right, but that's the nature of opportunity taking. I think being well informed, knowing the possibilities of any decision you're going to make, and sort of being well prepared and thinking very carefully about all the possible outcomes is always a good exercise. And these are the things that I try to focus on. So, whenever you have an opportunity, I try to take it. And sometimes it may not go according to plan, and I guess in some ways that's a failure, but in other ways it's a learning. And I think it's important to focus on that learning. And as long as you've taken that away, and you've used it to improve, and you've used it to better your decision making ability, that's what I think the focus should be on. So, I don't want to say keep making mistakes, but definitely keep learning, and definitely keep trying to improve.
Well, that's a pretty good answer, and I'm sure that'll resonate with many, many of our listeners. It's good life advice. Karan, thank you very, very much for joining us today. It's been a great
Thanks.
conversation.
It's been amazing. Thanks very much.